Hello, I'm Bernard Norcott-Mahany. I work at the Blueford branch of the Kansas City Public Library. Uh, April is National Poetry Month, and for April 2025, I am reading poems from Edgar Lee Masters' Spoon River Anthology. Each day I'm reading 3 or 4 poems. This will not complete the anthology, which has over 200 poems, but it'll make at least a start on that. The premise of the work, which was published in 1915, is that we are walking through the graveyard on the hill at Spoon River, Illinois, and as we come across tombstones, we see the name, and then the ghost of the person buried there then speaks to us about whatever. In some cases about how they died, in some cases about how they lived, in some cases about stuff totally different than any of that. So today I'll be reading Justice Arnett, Willard Fluke, and Aner Clute. Justice Arnett. It is true, fellow citizens, that my old docket, lying there for years on a shelf above my head and over the seat of justice, I say it is true that docket had an iron rim which gashed my baldness when it fell. Somehow I think it was shaken loose by the heave of the air all over town when the gasoline tank at the canning works blew up and burned Butch Weldy. But let us argue points in order and reason the whole case carefully. First, I concede my head was cut. But second, the frightful thing was this. The leaves of the docket shot and showered around me like a deck of cards in the hands of a sleight of hand performer. And up to the end, I saw those leaves till I said at last, "Those are not leaves. Why can't you see they are days and days and the days and days of 70 years? And why do you torture me with leaves and the little entries on them?" So here, the justice dies in a freak accident when the iron shelf that has his docket of cases falls on his head, gives him a gash which proves fatal, and while he's dying he sees the various pieces of paper flying around. Willard Fluke. My wife lost her health and dwindled until she weighed some 70 pounds. Then that woman, whom the men styled Cleopatra, came along, and we married ones, all broke our vows, myself among the rest. Years passed, and one by one death claimed them all in some hideous form, and I was borne along by dreams of God's particular grace for me. And I began to write, reams on reams of the second coming of Christ. Then Christ came to me and said, "Go into the church and stand before the congregation and confess your sin." But just as I stood up and began to speak, I saw my little girl who was sitting in the front seat, my little girl who was born blind. After that, all is blackness. So here we have a minister or deacon in the church, Willard Fluke. His daughter is blind, and he is confessing his sins of adultery before, I think, an empty room, but it turns out his daughter is there. Aner Clute. Over and over they used to ask me while buying the wine or the beer, in Peoria first and later in Chicago, Denver, Frisco, New York, wherever I lived, how I happened to lead the life, and what was the start of it. Well, I told them a silk dress and a promise of marriage from a rich man. It was Lucius Atherton. But that was not really it at all. Suppose a boy steals an apple from the tray at the grocery store, and they all begin to call him a thief. The editor, minister, judge, and all the people. A thief, a thief, a thief, wherever he goes. And he can't get work and he can't get bread without stealing it. Why, the boy will steal. It's the way people regard the theft of the apple that makes the boy what he is. So here, Aner Clute apparently had become a fallen woman because of a false promise of marriage from the sort of playboy blackguard figure Lucius Atherton. And once the label is on you, you can't really avoid it.